Hello. All right, it looks like we're all here, so we're going to begin in a minute. But before we start, a few quick public service announcements. For an emergency, please note the exits on either side of the chambers and proceed down the stairs. Bathrooms are located out the door to my left. Women's room is to the right. Men's room is to the left. We allow 30 minutes for public speaking. If you have not done so already, please sign up at the podium or through the Zoom chat by raising your Zoom hand. Please note the council has rules of decorum for our meetings, including the public speaking portion. We ask that respect be shown to all, whether they serve on the council, on the staff, or are here as a public member. I am now calling this common council meeting to order at 7:33 p.m. on February 6th, 2024. If you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. May I please have roll call?
Alderman Pasty,
Here.
Alderman Tierney,
Here.
Alderman Scott Childress,
Here.
Alderman Edwards,
Present.
Alderman Mickens,
Here.
Alderman Dennison,
Here.
Alderman Andrews,
Here.
Alderman Shabbat,
Here.
Alderman Hirsch.
Here. We have a quorum. Can I have a motion to dispense with the minutes of the previous meeting? Approve same. Motion by Rennie Scott Childress, second by Sarah Pasty. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is adopted 9-0. Can I have a motion to dispense with the reading of the general bills? Motion by Rennie Scott Childress, second by Michelle Hirsch. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is adopted 9-0. As council members, we get the opportunity to meet folks from throughout the city and from all walks of life. Throughout our service on the council, we meet community members who genuinely move us with their acts of kindness and their efforts to better our community. Tonight, we recognize and honor two community members who have gone above and beyond to serve and help others with our Common Council Community Award. This month, we are delighted to present Lynn Woods and Stephen Blauweis with the award. They were selected by Alderman Steve Shabbat, and at this time, I invite Lynn up to join Steve at the podium.
There we go. All right, thank you. All right, this is indeed a really thrill for me and an honor for me to present this award tonight to Lynn Wood and Stephen Blauweis, who is not here. And believe me, we have tried for months just to get these two on the same continent, let alone in City Hall together, which we've been unable to do. So we're going to give it to Lynn on behalf of both. I'm not sure if everybody here is familiar. If you're a newcomer, you may not be aware of the work Steve and Lynn have done. They made a documentary film about urban renewal called Urban Removal. And it was, it was just by kind of coincidence that I got to actually be in this movie. I stopped the very first time I was running for office. I stopped at Lynn's house and we got talking for quite a while and she invited me in and, we really struck up a really nice relationship. And it's one of those moments, I'm sure we all have them. I hope we all have them where our constituents seg over into friendship. This has been one of those great opportunities. But about a week or so later, I got a call from Lynn asking me if I would like to appear in the movie about urban renewal. So having never been in a movie before, I thought this would be a good opportunity. So we got together, we discussed a lot of things. I really got to know a great deal about urban renewal. Even though I lived through it, I was rather young and, as youngsters do, you don't really pay much attention to what's going on around you. You walk through it every day, but you're kind of blind to it. So this was a real eye opener to me. And the reason that I want to give them the award tonight, I think it was not only an eye opener for me, it was an eye opener for this whole community. Their film has opened up dialogues all over the place about what we went through as kids and young adults. We saw the reasons for it, good or bad, but it happened. I choose not to be bitter about my house being knocked down for this, but you move on. And as I said, kids don't really think too much about that stuff. But it was really a pleasure to be involved, again. I'm sure these folks know how much work they put in. I have an inkling of how much went into the making of this movie, how many people they interviewed. If you haven't seen the movie, I strongly suggest it. I have seen it 4 times and I have cried every time I see it. When you see the wrecking balls knocking down the buildings, it really hits home. And even though in hindsight, you know what happened, but you're still sitting watching this saying, I don't understand it. So time doesn't heal all the wounds, but we have a greater understanding thanks to Lynn and Steve. And, I'm not really sure that they realize the impact they've made on this community. I realize it. I see people, I just saw somebody downstairs on the way in, and that's the first thing he wanted to talk about was downtown. So I thank you for the work you have put in. I know your work is not done. She's already thinking about future projects and I can't wait to hear about them. So Lynn, thank you. Thanks, Steve. We appreciate everything you've done for this community.
Well, I'm really touched and I'm really glad that Steve agreed to be interviewed because one of his anecdotes is one of the highlights of the film, which is buying blue jeans as a kid and having them bought several sizes too big because you would grow into them. Every time he appears on screen, everybody laughs. So thank you so much. But I'm really touched and I would just like to say a few words about it. First of all, I'd like to thank Gene Donner. It was Gene Donner's photographs. He was a young man working for his father, who was a florist in the 60s, and he had a camera. And he took nearly 1,000 slides. So that was the basis for the film. We found out about these slides. I then did some research in 2009 on the Kingston Urban Renewal files. There were 10 boxes at Ulster County Archives. Realized it wasn't just about buildings getting torn down, it was about thousands of people having to move. So we knew there was a story there. When I met Stephen, he was a filmmaker. One of us said, let's make a film. I think we thought it would maybe be a short film, just showing Gene's photographs, but quickly we realized it was a story waiting to be told. In a way, I feel like we were kind of facilitators. Just people came out of the woodwork. And over the course of, I guess it was 2 or 3 years, we showed the work in progress. The first showing was at the Person House. It was incredibly crude, but it was sold out. And right away, people came up to us and talked about the photographs they had from their mother. Or, so that was the way that we really got more ended up interviewing 40 people. So without this community's interest, without this community, it could not have happened. And not only did the community share its stories, but we got support. We did fundraisers when we did the works in progress showings. We got businesses to help us. People donated money, a couple of people, a lot of money. Repco gave us a big grant. So it just kind of grew over time. And the very end of the process was finished in 2016. I got a call from Washington, D.C., from Renee Van Dyke, and her dad was the first Black alderperson in Kingston. And so she called me up and said, I heard you're making this film and you got to talk about my dad. So I'm glad she called us because we then interviewed his son, Joe, who lives in Port Ewan. That was an important part of the story. And Leonard had fought our renewal. So the more we learned, the more complicated it was. And there's still probably a lot more that could be said, but we had to stop it at a certain point. We've shown it like all the historic societies, theaters, libraries, community centers in the Mid-Hudson Valley. We've also showed it in New York at the Columbia School of Architecture. We showed it at Cooper Union. We showed it at some community center in the Bronx. We showed it at Reading, Pennsylvania, an art center there that, although we did not win, we did not get into any festivals, we applied, and the director there had seen our film because it was one of the finalists, which we didn't know, and called me, and so we went out there. We showed it last year in Troy, the Restorative Justice Center here in Kingston, and in Saratoga Springs. So, and I have to say, everywhere we go, it's an American story. You know, we hear about the stories that happened everywhere. So I'm glad we were able to do it. I'm eternally grateful for the community because without this community, it would not have happened. And it's really your story. So I feel very privileged that we were able to do this. We were able to hear the stories, put it together. And it's been extremely fulfilling for me and for Stephen, who I know he's in Belgium right now. I know he wishes he were here. It's streaming on Amazon. If you go to lostrondout.com, you can stream it. And also we have a bunch of DVDs. Right before DVDs became obsolete, we got a big shipment. I have one here. So if anybody still looks at DVDs, you can go on our website and contact me. But again, I'm really touched. So thank you so much, Steve. And thank you for the Common Council. And thank you, Kingston.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn. We're now entering into the public speaking portion of the meeting. We have allotted 30 minutes for this purpose. Speakers will have 3 minutes. Please be aware that I will give a verbal 30-second warning. If there are remaining speakers after 30 minutes, I will call for a motion from the council to extend the period for another 30 minutes. Speakers, direct your comments to the chair as council members cannot engage in debate during this time. Please state your name and address on the record before you begin. The Common Council there can be no distractions from the audience in chamber or on Zoom. The Common Council has also received written comments for our consideration, and they could be found on the city's website under tonight's agenda. Can I have the first speaker, please?
Emily Hauser.
And you do have to get pretty close to it, Emily.
Good evening. My name is Emily Hauser. I live at 63 Highland Avenue, and I'm here to talk about Resolution 30, which is to set an annual fee for licenses that confer authorization to use or intrude upon municipal property for a specified purpose. I want to thank the council for being aldermen, for those that you have recently arrived and for those that you have continued your dedication and attention. The council is being asked to set a fee for a license and for use and intrude upon municipal property, but there's nothing in this that actually says what the use is, how much the intrusion is. And so I ask you to just table this because it doesn't have any thing to do with the size of the intrusion, the use of the intrusion, what the public benefit is. So it's very hard to just say, okay, we're going to charge $250. What is this used for? Is it for a planter, a bike rack, a temporary fence? Is it for a business to have parking over a sidewalk, which is public property? All those things are different. They have different benefits. And I would say that this is more of an encroachment lease that needs to be charged according to the value of the land. And this can be a square foot or some other thing, but I just ask you to really reconsider it, the whole notion, not just the fee. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Jean Jacobs.
They'll be on Zoom, folks.
Hello?
Hi, Jean. We could hear
Hi,
you.
good
You have 3
evening.
minutes.
Yes, I thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the Common Council. I'm a lifelong resident. I live at 139 Wall Street, and I come to you this evening as an expert for all my years in the healthcare industry. I urge all of you this evening to tread lightly. Tread lightly. We're going to pass a resolution this evening that relates to the human life. And therefore, the 850,000, if I'm incorrect with that amount, I'm doing it from my research, that you're going to be passing for the hiring of firemen, EMS, to our current staff. And let the record show, I have all the respect in the world for the Kingston Fire Department. My speech tonight, or my comment tonight, has nothing to do with their credibility or accountability. It has to do with a business plan. And overnight, I read that we decide on 1/1/24, we're taking over the ambulance service from Empress Mobile Life. I had grave concerns because I worked with the American Medical Association all my life. Top CEOs in the community, Dr. Neil Kalman. I'll say the names, you'll hear them, you'll know them. Dr. Meshes, Dr. Woodley, all of them. And I urge all of you to take this into consideration. We don't figure out a plan after we pass a plan. We have it figured out, or we document it, and we sit at a round table with the professionals that are going to be involved in these life-saving adventures. Without doing that, I'm speaking tonight because I will follow this very carefully. And I would hope that everyone does their research and know that the posts that I've been making are very serious when you attempt to arrive at a decision like this. I'm saying right now, there's no budget. I don't see a budget. I don't see where you've hired a service bureau. Do you have any idea what income is going to come in to offset the expenses? I don't think so. So I'm just being informative. I'm educating the community because it could be your life. And therefore, I hope the plan goes forward, but I'm going to be watching it very carefully. And I urge all of you to
30
continue to do
seconds.
your homework. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jean.
Welcome.
Next speaker. Is there anybody else in chambers who would like to speak? Or is there anybody else on Zoom who would like to speak? Any speakers? Seeing no more speakers, I will close the public speaking portion of the evening. And it is now my privilege to welcome to the podium our Majority Leader, Alderman Rennie Scott Childress, for his annual speech.
Thank you, President Schott. Bob told me to keep this short, so I cut it down to 45 minutes. 140 years ago, our country faced a situation somewhat like today. Insiders of the president's party believed the incumbent could not win re-election in the upcoming November election. President Abraham Lincoln shared those fears. He had led the country into a civil war, against 13 seceding states, and the results had been horrific. Hundreds of thousands of Americans had died in the fighting and the resulting dislocations of the war. Many members of Lincoln's party argued that he should be replaced as their candidate in 1864. Others called for postponing the election, arguing that a presidential race in the midst of a civil war would be seen as fraudulent. The political press, provocative then as now, warned the nation that things would go terribly. There would be a flame up in revolution, and the streets of our cities would run with blood. But an unexpected turn of events on the battlefield led to an unexpected outcome at the polls. Lincoln ended up winning with 55% of the popular vote. Lincoln took the podium in March 1865 to give his second inaugural address. It was in March then, not January. He looked out over a nation that, despite its successes, was bitter, exhausted, and vengeful. He knew that the complications were not simply those of North and South, but also Democrats against Republicans, factions of Democrats against other Democrats, factions of Republicans against other Republicans. He knew that taking sides in a fit of vengeance would not bring Americans together. He knew that reestablishing the nation, creating a resilient democracy, would require that Reconstruction take place, in his famous words, with malice toward none, with charity toward all. And here we are facing a great many threats right now. Globally, we recognize the potential for climate catastrophe and the more than 100 armed conflicts occurring around the globe. Nationally, we are facing another presidential election with the country again divided. Not just the two parties sparring with each other, but angry factions within each of those parties fighting each other. We see wild conspiracies and incendiary attacks in the press and on social media. There is a deep distrust of our democratic institutions from all sides. Locally, we know all too well the slow degradation and cruelties of houselessness, the frustrating search for affordable housing, the continuing poverty in the midst of plenty, the terrifying personal torments of mental illness and drug addiction, and gun violence. We mourn all loss of life, all the terrible violence wrought, especially when committed with guns. We are haunted especially by the death 3 years ago of DeGenera DJ Mason. She would have been 15 now. She should be beginning the second semester of 10th grade at Kingston High School. But a murderer robbed her of all that is precious. That man not only killed DJ, he also stole the peace from the Mason family and their neighbors. The Kingston Police Department expertly tracked down her killer. The Ulster County Court sentenced him to 20 years in jail. We have punished the perpetrator, but how do we bring solace to those who are still with us? Those who now feel ignored by the city, who feel ignored by those in other neighborhoods who have forgotten what DJ's neighbors must live with in little moments, in the crack of a firework, in the flash of a car's headlights late at night, then the smile of a child who they now fear could be the next victim. In the shadow of such suffering, in the knowledge of the problems we face, how do we build a resilient community with, as Lincoln put it, malice toward none and charity for all? Just as we mourn loss and pain together, we must work to prevent it together. We are fortunate to live in a community with so many people ready to pitch in to create a resilient Kingston. I'll mention here just a few groups. There's the Good Work Institute, the Novo Foundation, People's Place, Kingston Mutual Aid, Break Bread World, and Gather, and many, many others, CCE, for example. The Kingston Common Council has been at the forefront of working towards solutions to our problems. We were deeply involved in creating the new zoning plan that should help us increase economic diversity throughout the city. We worked closely with residents and with the mayor to create an innovative resolution to the problems at Stony Run. We passed the ETPA. We were the first city in upstate New York to do that. We also passed the good cause eviction law. We hope to see that pressure that came from our passing it lead to its extension statewide. We've supported new legal supports for tenants facing eviction or landlord harassment. We've supported new mobile mental health programs, the new mobile mental health program of the fire department. We appreciate very much what you guys are doing there. and are in the process of creating a top-notch ambulance service. We've worked closely with the mayor to achieve major accomplishments regarding environmental sustainability. I was going to thank every single director of our various departments, but I realized that would take the full 45 minutes. So I want them all to know that I'm deeply in gratitude to everything they do. Alyssa, I hope you pass that on to everybody. I'd also like to thank the hundreds of employees of these departments, the scores and scores of community volunteers who run our boards and commissions, as well as Mayor Steve Noble. But even as we can look back to some of the successes, some of the advances we've made, we know that there's a lot left to do. For example, traffic. We have the twin issues of shared transportation routes and climate catastrophe. How do we address this? This is a big question, and we're glad that folks are working on this problem so that we can work together to try to resolve it. I do note too that under the current administration, we've repaved 35 miles of city streets. We've got about 50 more to go. We'll get that done next week. We must repair and extend our sidewalks. We need to develop meaningful programs to entice residents and visitors to share the road with all. And we must finish the effort to reduce the citywide speed limit to 25 miles an hour. In terms of infrastructure, we need to develop a coherent plan for the future as we see 500-year storms happen more like every 500 days. Places that never flooded before are flooding now. Places that flooded before are being inundated with tidal waves of rainwater. The Tannery Brook, for example, so sleepy in dry weather, becomes a raging torrent in these high-impact storms. So we must develop a detailed plan for responding to conditions that promise to get worse before they get better. I think also that it's time for charter review. This does not mean revision. It means taking a look at the charter, having a process in place so that citizens of the city can look at the charter and make sure that it actually fits the needs and requirements of our city here in the current day. We, of course, have to do more in terms of housing. We're looking at some programs like a home share program, which Alderwoman Pasty talked about last night. This is a great program that also not only addresses the issue of the dilemma of finding homes, but the issue of elderly folks being lonely. We have an epidemic of loneliness in the United States today, and this is a program that matches younger people who can't find housing with older people who have large houses with certain kinds of needs. It's not enough for us to pass our new zoning code, which I'm very proud of, but we must be proactive in supporting neighbors and residents to move toward the vision of a greater economic diversity throughout the city. We should look into other forms of housing too that bring different communities together, such as intergenerational LGBTQ housing along the lines of that developed at the Rosenstein Apartments in Los Angeles. We, I think, should look at the possibility of the Vienna model of public housing, where the city itself invests in developing housing and creates the potential for economically diverse communities. We can show greater support for the residents of public housing in its various forms, from KHA, from Kingston Housing Authority, to RUPCO's various programs. We should look at programs that would reduce the number of absentee landlords in the city, particularly in Midtown, and make it possible to transition tenants easily and inexpensively into owners. We very much appreciate the work of Bartek Saradai and Sue Cahill in particular in terms of our housing issues. And we appreciate the mayor's goal of 1,000 new units in the next 5 years. But housing itself is not enough. A community is not just the buildings we live in. It's a network of homes, of neighbors, of city residents who can feel mutual pride across all differences and distinctions. It's time to implement the community safety program that we developed 2 years ago with Peaceful Guardians, which was paid for by the city and has not yet been implemented. I would point to some other groups too, like InGather, a new app that's been developed. It's a locally based on the idea of a locally based gift economy that reweaves the social fabric of our communities through supportive, joyful human connections. The aim is to go beyond charity and create a place where neighbors across the city can pursue common interests, share skills and resources, and give and get a helping hand. We cannot simply create houses, as we should not simply fix potholes, important as those things are. Rather, I believe we must work toward a loving vision that binds us together and creates a resilient and thriving community from the Hudson to the Esopus. I fear that in these times we focus too much on what we hate, or on who we are against, or on who is our enemy. Turning toward love is not easy. It requires struggle and difficult conversations. But I believe, given the people I know throughout the community, given I know of the dedication of all the members of the Common Council, the people who work for the city, I believe that we are ready. Here on this early day in February, I end with a quotation from the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. that suggests the urgency of turning toward a greater love if we are to be truly resilient. He said, "The end is reconciliation, the end is redemption. The end is the creation of the beloved community. It is this type of spirit and this type of love that can transform opposers into friends. It is this type of understanding goodwill that will transform the deep gloom of the old age into the exuberant gladness of the new age. It is this love which will bring about miracles in the hearts of all people." Thank you.
Thank you, Rennie. You could add some jokes in there if you. We now enter into claims and communications. Hearing no discussion, they will be on file in the clerk's office. Can I get a motion to dispense with the second reading of the general bills and pay same? Motion by Rennie Scott Childress, second by Jeannie Edwards. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is adopted 9-0. We now enter into the report of committees, starting with resolution number 16, please.
Resolution 16 of 2024. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending the approval of a transfer in the fire department in the amount of $32,188.17.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution 17, please.
Resolution 17 of 2024. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending the approval of a transfer in the Parks and Recreation Department in the amount of $11,100 to reconcile accounts.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 18, please.
Resolution 18 of 2024. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending the approval of a transfer in the city clerk's budget in the amount of $60,000 for judgments and claims.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 19, please.
Resolution 19 of 2024. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending the approval of a transfer of $859,595.56 from fund balance to fund staffing and other costs for the Kingston Fire Department to provide ambulance services.
On the question, Alderman Rennie Scott Childress.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in support of this resolution. My admiration for our fire department is unending and deep for the way that they have been able to turn on a dime and develop an ambulance service for us. We were held over a barrel to a great extent by a private company. The amount of money we were going to have to pay was really high. And so I don't see this as a difficult decision. I think this is fiscally, practically, and community smarts. So like I say, I greatly appreciate what Chief Ray and everyone at the fire department has done. I believe they've already established a really sound service. Their service so far has been stellar. We're looking forward to developing this further, developing all the practices that we need to ensure we recover money through insurance from the people who use the service so that it becomes a model for the state of New York. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing no more discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 20, please.
Resolution 20 of 2024. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending the approval of a transfer in the amount of $20,000 from contingency for the purpose of a fire rescue boat.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 21, please.
Resolution 21 of 2024. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending the approval of a transfer in the amount of $232,565 in the Police Department's budget to balance accounts.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 22, please.
Resolution 22 of 2024. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending the approval of a transfer in the amount of $2,776.72 in the Arts and Cultural Affairs budget to cover unanticipated overexpenditures.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 23, please.
Resolution 23 of 2024. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending the approval of a transfer in the amount of $1,416.58 in the Human Rights Department to balance accounts.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 24, please.
Resolution 24 of 2024. An ordinance amending an ordinance in relation to the traffic on the public streets of the City of Kingston, New York, removing no parking ambulant only signs on Broadway in front of the Health Alliance Broadway campus.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 25, please.
Resolution 25 of 2024. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, appointing EFPR Group CPAs PLLC as the City of Kingston's independent auditors.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 26, please.
Resolution 26 of 2024. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the renewal of the intermunicipal agreement between the Town of Ulster and City of Kingston for shared police services.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution 27, which needs a supermajority.
Resolution 27 of 2024. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, amending Common Council rules to change the name of the committee known as Community Development to Community Development and Housing.
On the question, Alderman Rennie Scott Childress.
Thank you. I'd like to commend President Andrea Schott for leading this change. It seems small in one way, but I think by adding the word housing and the duties of investigating housing to one of our committees, one of our standing committees, it demonstrates our commitment to resolving our housing issues in this city. So I thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution 28, please.
Resolution 28 of 2024. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, allowing e-bikes to operate on pathways in the City of Kingston, New York.
On the question, Alderman Bob Dennison.
President Schott, I rise in support of Resolution 28. This resolution will allow people to ride Class 1 and 2 e-bikes and e-scooters to use the multi-use pathways in the city, as well as on city-owned parks and parking lots. It's important to point out this is not about Class 3 bikes, which I know there's been some discussion about, which are not allowed on any public streets outside of New York City. So it's not a Class 3, only Class 1 and 2. This is really necessary because the New York State passed a law that permitted Class 1 and 2 bikes on public streets, but they did not include pathways. And the Empire State Trail, which runs through the city of Kingston, is used by many people for tourism, with e-bikes and with local people with e-bikes. So it's important that we legitimize the use of this trail. People will continue to use e-bikes on the trail, and I think they should. It's a good thing to do. The resolution also has a provision for the Director of Parks to prohibit the use of e-bikes on places where she feels that it's not appropriate by signage, so we're safe as far as having them invade places that shouldn't have e-bikes on them. So I encourage my fellow Common Council members to endorse this and to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 29, please.
Resolution 29 of 2024, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing to raise the fee for removal of a city tree under Chapter 373-12 of the Code of the City of Kingston, New York.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 30, please.
Resolution 30 of 2024, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston setting an annual fee for licenses that confer authorization to use and/or intrude upon municipal properties for a specified purpose.
On the question, Alderman Rennie Scott Childress who has yielded to Alderman Bob Dennison. So we'll start here.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead. I just want to point out that this resolution is not about the cost of using public property, but simply an administrative fee, which covers the cost of what's necessary to process these requests. So I would encourage my Common Council counterparts to vote in favor of it.
Thank you. Rennie, did you want to? Oh. Anyone else? Hearing no further discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution 31, please.
Resolution 31 of 2024, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston setting an annual fee for a license to operate a hotel, motel, inn, boarding house, lodging house, rooming house, association club, or any business of renting rooms as per Administrative Code, Section 277-1 of the City of Kingston.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 32, please.
Resolution 32 of 2024, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the mayor to enter into 2 easement agreements for 166 Delaware Avenue and 7 Courts Street.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 33, please.
Resolution 33 of 2024, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the mayor to execute the financing and tax compliance agreement related to the $14 million library bond ordinance.
On the question? Alderman Rennie Scott Childress.
Thank you. I just would like to point out to the folks who are keeping score at home that this item is not a City of Kingston bond. This is something that we are doing required by state law because the library want to vote to take out a $14 million bond for reconstruction and renovation. The requirement is that it simply passes through the local municipal government.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. We move to the first reading of local law 1, which does not need a vote, which will not have a vote tonight.
Local Law 1 of 2024 of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, amending Section 390.80, immobilization and impounding of vehicles.
And moving to the first reading of local law 2, which also will not have a vote tonight.
Local Law 2 of 2024 of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, amending Section 277, hotels, motels, bed and breakfasts, boarding houses, and other transient lodging of the Code of the City of Kingston.
That concludes our communications. Before we end our council meeting, does anyone have anything that they would like, anybody that would like to close in memory of? Alderman Steve Shabbat?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to close in memory of two people. First being Louis Klein, been an attorney in Kingston for, seems like forever. Lou has been a very active member of the community. Went to NYU, Brooklyn Law School. He served as the Kingston School Board President. He also served as the chair of the Ulster County Legislature. He does volumes of community service, including Kiwanis here in Kingston. He's just been such an active member of the community, very positive guy. When I first ran, I got a phone call from him congratulating me and, giving me encouragement. And he's been supporting of my whole career here, serving the public as well. And I know he's done the same for many other people. Sadly, he leaves behind his wife, Mary Jo, 4 children, and many, many grandkids. Lou was a really great guy and a valuable member of this community. The other is Mary Ann Cioni, actually my wife's cousin, lifelong Kingston resident. Mary Ann taught 30 years at the United Cerebral Palsy, retiring just a few years ago. She's an active member down at Immaculate Conception, the Rosary Society. We see her there quite often at church. She leaves behind her long, I think they've been married 53 years, her husband Tom, 3 daughters and several grandkids. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? I wasn't planning on doing this. I thought somebody else would, but I would like to close in memory of Kevin Sampson, who passed away a week ago, I believe, and we all know, and anybody who knows him would also love him too. He was a staple of the Kingston community, always so generous. I didn't know him well, but every time that I would see him in Uptown, we would stop and chat for a little bit, and it's a huge loss for the city of Kingston. So I would like to close in memory of Kevin. Anyone else? Okay, then hearing no one else, we hereby stand adjourned until the next regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday, March 5th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. Thank you all.